Hello everyone, my name is Isaac and I'm a Catholic. In today's video, we are going to explore the private home of Pope Leo XIV, the papal apartment that Pope Francis rejected and refused to stay in during his entire 12 years as Pope. So, we are going to do a full tour, room by room, inside the papal apartment of Pope Leo XIV. So let us get into it.
On March 14, 2026, the lights turned on in the papal apartment for the first time in 12 years. Pope Leo XIV moved into the official papal residence in the Apostolic Palace, the same residence Pope Francis refused to live in for his entire pontificate. And today, we're taking you inside. This is a room-by-room tour of the papal apartment where Pope Leo XIV now lives. The location: Third Loggia of the Apostolic Palace. The papal apartment is located on the third floor of the Apostolic Palace in what's called the Third Loggia. The Apostolic Palace itself is massive. It covers 162,000 square meters. That's 1.7 million square feet. It contains the papal apartments, offices of the Vatican, chapels, the Vatican Library, museums, and art galleries. Construction of the current palace began in 1589 under Pope Sixtus V. It took over a century to complete, with various popes adding their own contributions between 1471 and 1605. The papal apartment occupies much of the top floor, about 10 rooms in total, and it's been the official papal residence since 1903, when St. Pius X became the first pope to live there. Before that, popes lived in the Quirinal Palace, but when Italy unified in 1870, Pope Pius IX took refuge in the Vatican, and eventually the papal residence was established in the Apostolic Palace. Every pope since Pius X has lived there, except one, Pope Francis. Francis chose to live in Casa Santa Marta, the Vatican guest house, for his entire 12-year pontificate. He said he didn't like the idea of living alone in the grand papal apartment. He preferred to be surrounded by other people. But Pope Leo XIV is different. On March 14, 2026, he moved in. The entrance, grand staircase, and mural maps. Access to the papal apartment is through a grand staircase on the St. Peter's Square side of the Apostolic Palace. There's also an elevator today, but the staircase is the traditional entrance. As you walk up, you're surrounded by history. The corridors leading to the apartment are covered with mural maps, massive frescoes painted on the walls depicting various regions of the world. This area is known as the Third Loggia. The loggias themselves were designed by Donato Bramante and decorated by Raphael with frescoes depicting 52 biblical events. Once you reach the top of the staircase, you arrive at the entrance hall of the papal apartment, and from there, you enter a series of rooms that have housed some of the most powerful men in the world. Room 1. The Entrance Hall. The first room you encounter is the entrance hall. It's a large, formal space that serves as the entryway to the apartment. This is where guests are received before being escorted to other rooms. It's not lavishly decorated compared to other parts of the Apostolic Palace, but it's spacious and dignified. From here, the layout branches out into the various rooms of the apartment. Room 2. The Private Library. Meeting Room. This is one of the most important rooms in the papal apartment. The Private Library, also called the meeting room. This is where the Pope receives guests in the morning, where he holds private audiences, where he meets with world leaders, bishops, and dignitaries. The room faces St. Peter's Square. It has a central table for group meetings and a desk for one-on-one audiences. The room is elegant, but not ostentatious. Wood paneling, bookshelves lining the walls, classical furniture, This is the public face of the papal apartment, the room where history is made. Room 3, the Pope's private study. Next is the Pope's private study. This is the room most Catholics recognize without realizing it, because this is the room with the window where the Pope appears every Sunday at noon to lead the Angelus prayer in St. Peter's Square. That iconic image of the Pope standing at the window, waving to the crowd below. That's this room. The study is where the Pope works, where he reviews documents, where he prepares his homilies and speeches, where he signs decrees and appointments. It's a quieter, more intimate space than the library. This is where the Pope spends much of his day. And every Sunday, right at noon, Pope Leo steps to that window, looks out over St. Peter's Square, and prays the Angelus with tens of thousands of people gathered below. Room 4, the office of the papal secretaries. Adjacent to the Pope's study is the office of the papal secretaries. This is where the more bureaucratic work of the papacy takes place. The secretaries review documents, coordinate schedules, manage correspondence, and handle the administrative side of running the Universal Church. Pope Leo's 2 secretaries, Monsignor Edgard Ivan Rimaicuna Inga from Peru and Father Marco Bileri from Italy, work in this room. Pope Benedict XVI had the space modified slightly. He brought in his own desk and added more bookshelves. Every pope customizes the apartment to fit their working style, and Pope Leo is no different. Room 5, the private chapel. If there's one room that defines the papal apartment, it's the private chapel. This chapel was commissioned by Pope Paul VI in 1964 with a clear vision, that it be a place intended solely for prayer and recollection. It was inaugurated on November 1, 1964, and it's been the spiritual heart of the papal apartment ever since. This is where popes celebrate private Mass every morning before starting their day. This is where they pray. This is where they seek God in silence. In 2004, a photographer captured an image of Pope John Paul II kneeling in this chapel, praying for the victims of the Madrid bombings. The chapel is simple, understated, not grand or ornate, because it's not meant to be a showpiece. It's meant to be a sanctuary. Pope Leo celebrates Mass here every morning. Just him, his secretaries, and a few members of the papal household. This room reminds us, before he's a world leader, before he's a diplomat, before he's a media figure, the Pope is a priest. And this chapel is where that priestly identity is lived out every single day. Room 6, the dining room. The papal apartment also includes a dining room. This is where the Pope eats his meals, sometimes alone, sometimes with guests, sometimes with his secretaries and the members of the papal household. Pope Leo is known to value community. He's an Augustinian, and community life is central to Augustinian spirituality. So the dining room is an important space for him. It's also where the Pope can host small, informal dinners with cardinals, bishops, or visiting dignitaries. Not every papal decision happens in formal meetings. Some of the most important conversations happen over a meal. Room 7. The kitchen. Connected to the dining room is the kitchen. This is where the papal household prepares meals for the Pope and his staff. Traditionally, a small community of nuns has lived in the papal apartment to manage the household, cooking, cleaning, maintaining the space. It's a reminder that even the Pope needs someone to cook his meals and do the laundry. He's the vicar of Christ, but he's also a human being with basic needs. Room 8. The Pope's bedroom. This is the most private room in the papal apartment, the Pope's bedroom. Traditionally, the papal bedroom is located in the corner of the third floor, with windows overlooking both St. Peter's Square and the center of Rome. But according to Italian media, Pope Leo has made a change. He's moved his bedroom to the 4th floor, to what's described as an attic or loft space above the 3rd loggia. Why? For privacy and security. The traditional bedroom faces St. Peter's Square, which means anyone with binoculars could theoretically see into the Pope's private space. By moving to the 4th floor, Pope Leo has more privacy. His bedroom doesn't face the square. It's in a section of the Apostolic Palace above the Vatican Bank, away from public view. This is a smart move, and it shows Pope Leo is thinking practically about how to live in this historic but very public space. Room 9. The Small Terrace. Above the 3rd floor, under the roof, is a small terrace overlooking the inner courtyard of the Apostolic Palace. This terrace provides a private outdoor space for the Pope, a place to step outside, breathe fresh air, and escape the confines of the apartment for a few moments. It's not visible from St. Peter's Square. It's a hidden oasis in the heart of the Vatican. The 4th floor, staff quarters, and the Pope's actual living space. Here's where things get interesting. The 4th floor of the Apostolic Palace, above the traditional papal apartment, has historically been used for staff quarters. The papal secretaries, the nuns who manage the household, and other members of the papal staff lived there. But according to Italian media, Pope Leo has converted part of the 4th floor into his personal living quarters. This attic, or loft space, includes the Pope's bedroom, moved from the 3rd floor for privacy, a detached bathroom, a small chapel, a kitchen, a small terrace. And here's the kicker, a workout area, a home gym. That's right. Pope Leo has a gym in his apartment. He's known to value health and fitness, and as a pope who's relatively young, he wants to stay in shape. So he's installed a workout area in his living space. Very 21st century. Very American. Very Pope Leo. The renovations. 10 months of work. When Pope Leo was elected on May 8, 2025, the papal apartment was in rough shape. It hadn't been lived in for 12 years. Pope Francis had left it empty. And before that, Pope Benedict XVI had complained about the outdated electrical system and the leaking roof. So the Vatican spent 10 months renovating the apartment, updating the electrical system, fixing the plumbing, repairing the roof. And on March 14, 2026, the apartment was finally ready. Pope Leo moved in with his closest aides. The symbolism. Lights on after 12 years. On the evening of March 14, 2026, people in St. Peter's Square noticed something. The lights were on in the papal apartment. For the first time in 12 years, you could see them from the square. 3 windows lit up on the 3rd floor. The study, the secretary's office, and then, above, the lights on the 4th floor where the Pope's bedroom is located. It's a small thing, but it's symbolic. The papal apartment is occupied again. The Pope is home. What this tells us about Pope Leo XIV. Pope Leo's decision to move into the Apostolic Palace tells us a few things. First, he respects tradition. The papal apartment has been the official residence since 1903. Every pope except Francis lived there. Pope Leo is returning to that tradition. Second, he's practical. He didn't just move into the traditional configuration. He customized it. He moved his bedroom upstairs for privacy. He installed a gym. He made it work for his needs. Third, he's consolidating his team. His secretaries live with him. His closest aides are nearby. He's creating a household that functions efficiently. And fourth, he's his own man. He's not Francis. He's not Benedict, he's Leo, and he's living in the Apostolic Palace his way. So there you have it, a room-by-room tour of the papal apartment where Pope Leo XIV now lives. 10 rooms on the 3rd floor, personal quarters on the 4th floor, a chapel, a gym, a terrace, a window overlooking St. Peter's Square. This is where the Pope lives. This is where he works. This is where he prays. This is where he leads the Catholic Church. And after 12 years of darkness, the lights are on again. What do you think of the papal apartment? Drop it in the comments. If this tour helped you understand where the Pope actually lives, like the video. Subscribe to Catholic Snack for more behind-the-scenes looks at the Vatican. And here's a question. If you were Pope, would you live in the Apostolic Palace or Casa Santa Marta? Let me know. The Pope from Chicago is living in a 15th-century palace, with a gym on the 4th floor and a window overlooking the world. Welcome home, Pope Leo.
Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to the Catholic News Channel. God bless.